We're reading from, one more time, 2 Samuel, 13th chapter, the 10th through the 20th verse. Let's read responsibly. Then Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food here into my bedroom, so I may eat from your hand." And Tamar took the bread she had prepared and brought it to her brother Amnon in his bedroom.
When she took it to him to eat,
He grabbed her and said, "Come to bed with me, my sister." "No, my brother," she said to him, "don't force me. Such a thing should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing." "What about me? Where can I get rid of my disgrace? And what about you? You would be like one of the wicked fools in Israel. Please speak to the king. He will not keep me from being married to you." But he refused to listen to her. And since he was stronger than she, he raped her. Then Amnon hated her with intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had loved her. Amnon said to her, "Get up and get out." "No," she said to him. "Sending me away would be a greater wrong than what you have already done to me." But he refused to listen to her. He called his personal servant and said, "Get this woman out of my sight and bolt the door after her." So his servant put her out and bolted the door after her. She was wearing an ornate robe, for this was the kind of garment the virgin daughters of the king wore. Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the ornate robe she was wearing. She put her hands on her head and went away, weeping aloud as she went. Together, her brother Absalom said to her, "Has that Amnon, your brother, been with you? Be quiet for now, my sister. He is your brother. Don't take this thing to heart." And Tamar lived in her brother Absalom's house, a desolate woman. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of God's word. Amen.
So I can tell everyone was for the keeping, so you clean me up inside. The most important part of that statement is you thought I was to die for. Who do you know in your life besides Jesus that thinks you ought to die for? In your good moments and then your bad moments. Amen? But see, we're willing to sacrifice for our kids to a point. Amen? Let's be honest, to a point. We want to sacrifice to our honey bunny to a point. Amen? Until they do something that we think is across that line.
Is that Jesus is willing to die for us no matter what we did. Amen. And so even when you mess up 500 million times, Jesus still wants to be there for you and is willing to sacrifice his life. Do you all realize that Jesus sacrificed for you before you were born? Before your great, we don't have enough greats for that, was born. Before you were even a twinkle in your mother's eye, Jesus sacrificed his life just for you and just for me. Isn't that good news this morning? Yes. Amen. All right, now this is where I'm going to need y'all to help me. Amen. We have a few people here today, so we can all be really quiet, or we can act like there's a million people in here and we can praise God anyhow. Amen?
Amen.
Praise the Lord anyhow. Amen. Amen. I'm going to read that scripture into your hearing. I'm going to read a little bit more than we read responsively. So if you will turn with me to 2 Samuel, the 13th chapter, I'm going to read verses 1 through 20 so we can get a sense of the whole story. Is that all right? Yes. 2 Samuel, the 13th chapter, verses 1 through 20. When you're there, say amen. A little more time, say hold up. The book of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings are called the historical books. Amen, because they tell the history of Israel becoming a great nation. They are some of my favorite books in the Bible because there's a lot of family drama. And as a psychologist, it's like it's a psychologist's dream. You see a lot of dysfunction, particularly in David's family. Amen? Yeah. And so you are there, say amen. Amen. Hold up. Amen. 2 Samuel 13th chapter, verses 1 through 20. In the course of time, Amnon, son of David, fell in love with Tamar, the beautiful sister of Absalom, son of David. Amnon became so obsessed with his sister Tamar that he made himself ill. She was a virgin, and it seemed impossible for him to do anything to her. Now Amnon had an advisor named Jonadab, son of Shemiah, David's brother. Jonadab was a very shrewd man. Turn to somebody and say he was slick. Slick. Say it like you mean he was slick. He was slick. He asked Amnon, why do you, the king's son, look so haggard morning after morning? Won't you tell me? Amnon said to him, I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Go to bed and pretend to be ill, Jonadab said. When your father comes to see you, say to him, I would like my sister Tamar to come and give me something to eat. Let her prepare the food in my sight, so I may watch her and then eat it from her hand. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to him, I would like my sister Tamar to come and make some special bread in my sight, so I may eat from her hand. David sent word to Tamar at the palace, go to the house of your brother Amnon and prepare some food for him. So Tamar went to the house of her brother Amnon, who was lying down. She took some bread, kneaded it, made the bread in his sight, and baked it. Then she took the pan and served him the bread, but he refused to eat. Send everyone out of here, Amnon said. So everyone left him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, bring the food here into my bedroom, so I may eat from your hand. And Tamar took the bread she had prepared and brought it to her brother Amnon in his bedroom. But when she took it to him to eat, he grabbed her and said, come to bed with me, my sister. No, my brother, she said to him, don't force me. Such a thing should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing. What about me? Where could I get rid of my disgrace? And what about you? You would be like one of the wicked fools in Israel. Please speak to the king. He will not keep me from being married to you.
but he refused to listen to her, and since he was stronger than she, he raped her.
Lord have mercy.
Then Amnon hated her with an intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had loved her. Amnon said to her, "Get up and get out." "No," she said to him, "sending me away would be a greater wrong than what you have already done to me." But he refused to listen to her. He called his personal servant and said, "Get this woman out of my sight and bolt the door after her." So his servant put her out and bolted the door after her. She was wearing an ornate robe, but this was the kind of garment the virgin daughters of the king wore. Tamar put ashes on her head for the ornate robe she was wearing. She put her hands on her head and went away, weeping aloud as she went. Her brother Absalom said to her, "Has that Amnon, your brother, been with you? Be quiet for now, my sister. He is your brother. Don't take his thing to heart." Be quiet for now, my sister. Don't take this thing to heart. And Tamar lived in her brother Absalom's house, a desolate woman. I ask for your prayers as we briefly consider the sermon topic, #MeToo. #MeToo. Let us pray. Dear gracious and merciful God, we come again to say thank you. God, we've had a wonderful time in the service, but we are here today, God, mostly to hear a word from you. God, please diminish Sherry and elevate your spirit in me so that everything I think, say, and imagine, God, is coming directly from you. God, you have everything to say. And we want this word to not just to go forth, God, but to break yokes this day in the name of Jesus. This is in your son's name that we pray. Amen. #MeToo. October, as many of you may know, hopefully, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, where we try to bring attention to this scourge that affects our community. Amen? Every year I do a sermon on domestic violence, and last year Pastor Guy did it because he said it was time for men to do the sermons too. Amen?
Amen.
And the sermon was entitled, "Breaking Out of the Man Box." But as we continue to try to bring awareness to this important topic, today's sermon isn't about domestic violence per se, but about sexual assault and sexual harassment in general, both inside and outside the home. Amen?
All right.
Y'all gonna pray with me?
Amen.
Amen. I think the Lord led me to this topic today, even though I didn't want to do it, to be honest with you. But it's hard to ignore in the context of the recent confirmation of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court, the highest court in the land.
Yes, that's right.
These kinds of accusations, beloved, and even this kind of hearing is not new. In fact, Pastor Guy and I were remarking it was eerily similar to the hearings that we had 17 years ago, when then Supreme Court Justice nominee Clarence Thomas was accused of sexually harassing his former employee, Anita Hill. Turn to somebody and say, same script,
Same script.
different cast.
Different cast.
In the current case, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford accused Judge Brett Kavanaugh of sexually assaulting her at a party when she was 15 and he was 17 years old. And what was different about this hearing was that it occurred in the context of the #MeToo movement. The #MeToo movement actually was started by an African-American female activist named Tarana Burke, who began to use the phrase Me Too in 2006 to raise awareness of the pervasiveness of sexual abuse and assault in our society. The phrase developed into a broader movement following the Harvey Weinstein sexual abuse allegations, when actress Alyssa Milano encouraged women who had experienced sexual harassment to tweet about it to give people a sense of the magnitude of the problem. Shockingly, there were over 500,000 tweets in 24 hours after she asked people to tweet this in October of last year. On Facebook, the hashtag was used by more than 4.7 million people. 4.7 million people and 12 million posts in 24 hours. Some men like Terry Crews and James Vanderbilt, who were actors, have also responded to the hashtag with their own experiences of harassment and abuse. while others have openly acknowledged and responded by recognizing their past abusive behavior towards women, spawning the hashtag #HowIWillChange. The movement, Beloved, has led to the downfall of such powerful men as Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Matt Lauer of The Today Show, Donovan McNabb on ESPN, Charlie Rose from PBS, John Conyers, the longtime U.S. representative from Michigan, Al Franken, the senator from the state of Minnesota, Russell Simmons, the co-founder of Def Jam Records, Les Moonves, chief executive of CBS Corporation, and popular actor Kevin Spacey from the House of Cards. And really, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
That's right.
The sad thing about the Me Too movement is that the behavior that spawned it is not new. In our text today, it comes from, sadly, a familiar story about the rape of Tamar by her brother Amnon, the eldest son of David and heir to the throne. The story is part of the unfolding saga of violence and dysfunction that David has unleashed in his very own family. Well, you see, Beloved, in 2 Samuel 12:11, the prophet Nathan announces to David that there will be trouble against you in your own house as part of the cycle of violence that is unleashed when David's adulterous affair with Bathsheba results in the murder of Bathsheba's husband, Uriah. As the story unfolds, we find that Amnon claimed to love Tamar and that he wanted to have sex with her, even though he knew it was forbidden. But Amnon, Beloved, was not used to somebody telling him no. As a privileged male in a patriarchal society and the eldest son of the king, he was used to getting what he wanted and when he wanted it. And it was somebody else's job to get it for him. So his cousin Jonadab was happy to oblige and helped him plan the rape of Tamar. Beloved, does this sound familiar?
Yes.
After the rape, Amnon cast her out, threw her out of his room. Now, to cast her out as a violated woman was just as bad as the rape. For as far as the community was concerned, she was used, she was tainted goods, she was an outcast. Absalom is furious with his brother Amnon, but he seems to be more concerned about the dishonor and shame that the rape brings to the family name and less concerned about Tamar. In fact, in verse 20, he tells her to be quiet about what has happened. He tells her, which blows my mind, don't take this to heart. David, the father who so decisively killed Goliath, the Philistine enemy, who so skillfully eluded Saul, who plotted to kill him over many long years, is strangely silent in the text. The text says he is angry, but takes no action against Amnon, his beloved first son and the heir to his throne. Beloved, the sad thing about this text is that while Tamar has a name and a voice in the story, the real reason the narrator tells the story is not because they want to focus on Tamar or even violence towards women. The drama unfolds because it's a story about men and power plays, just as the Kavanaugh hearings were about white men and power plays. Tamar is not introduced as a person in her own right, but as the daughter of David, the sister of Absalom, the object of Amnon's desires. Just as Congress's interest in Dr. Christine Ford is not about whether or not she was assaulted, but to see if her testimony could be used to derail or crown a beleaguered Judge Kavanaugh, depending on which side of the fence you sit. Tamar, like Christine Ford, is an event, not a person. For the past week, we've been riveted by the scandal of the hearings, not by the courage of a woman who refused to be silenced. When the event was over, Tamar disappeared, and sad to say, so will Dr. Ford. Until the next Tamar or the next Christine Ford comes forward, and the three-ring service called hearings can start all over again.
That's right.
How do we know, beloved? There are lots of biblical examples of #MeToo. Just look at Genesis 19, when Lot offers to exchange his daughters to be raped so that no harm will come to two visiting strangers. Just look at Judges 19, when the Levite's concubine is gang raped all night long to spare the Levite from this abomination. So why does this keep on happening? Why do we feel like the story never changes, even though, Pastor God, we have laws like Title VII of the Civil Rights Act that makes it quite clear that it is against the law to sexually harass anyone? And yet women, beloved, continue to feel denigrated, degraded, and depreciated, with over 4 million women crying out, #MeToo. Part of the problem, beloved, is that sexual assault is not clearly defined. And the legal definition varies depending on what state you live in, and what blew my mind, it also can depend on where the assault occurred. Sexual assaults continue to happen because both men and women tend to minimize the behavior and the impact it can have on women. During the hearings, the Republicans ran a focus group and asked Republican voters what they thought about the allegations against Judge Kavanaugh. Both men and women said things like, "This happened a long time ago. Why are you bringing it up now? It was just a little fondling. Get over it. This happens all the time. He probably was just flirting." And my favorite one was, "Boys will be boys." Another reason why sexual assault doesn't get eradicated is because women are afraid to come forward for fear of backlash or negative repercussions. Women are afraid of losing their jobs, being blacklisted or blackballed, passed over for promotion, or labeled a troublemaker. Women don't speak up because they are afraid they won't be believed. They will just be labeled as attention-seeking opportunists who are just mad because the man rejected them. Women don't speak up because they are afraid that they will be humiliated, ridiculed, and shamed, much like Dr. Ford was when the President of the United States, I'm trying to think about that, the President of the United States, the President and the leader of the free world, made fun of her testimony, noting that it was a dangerous time for men, that a man could be minding his own business and someone would just walk up out of the blue and accuse him of sexual assault and his life would be ruined, prompting the creation of another hashtag, Protect Our Boys, by mothers who are afraid of their sons being falsely accused. Now let's put a quarter in our meter for just a minute, beloved, and talk about false accusations. While there are examples of deception on the part of women, like the famous cases of the University of Virginia rape allegations 3 years ago, and the infamous charges against the Duke lacrosse team almost 10 years ago, it is estimated that only 2 to 10% of cases are false accusations.
That's right.
It is estimated that only 2 to 10% of cases are false accusations. And that probably is an exaggeration because most of those cases, the allegations cannot be proved and the charges have to be dropped. If you wonder, beloved, why women don't come forward, just look at the hearings, where a predominantly white male panel hired a white female prosecutor to pick apart Dr. Ford's credibility on national TV. Where the prosecutor they hired was cut off by members of the committee who made speech after speech about how Judge Kavanaugh and his family had been harmed. Where Dr. Ford was accused of telling too many narratives for her story to be true. Now, as a psychologist, let me share this with you. And I think we're going to do this in Bible study so we can go into more detail. Amen? But your memory is not a video camera. Amen? No memory can be possibly record and remember and retain every possible detail. When people are traumatized, they remember the trauma, not the events surrounding it. Amen?
That's right.
What about no witnesses? You shouldn't expect other people at the party to remember the event at all because they didn't know about it.
It didn't happen to them.
And it didn't happen to them, and so since they didn't know about it, that particular party would not stand out.
That's right.
Well, Pastor Sherry, what standard should we believe if we talk about trying to believe women? Donald Trump complained that the standard used for men accused of sexual assault was unfair, that men were presumed guilty until proven innocent. But beloved, how do you corroborate allegations where there are only 2 people present? The abuser and the victim. How do you demand third-party corroboration for behavior that rarely occurs in public spaces? We don't ask people who have been robbed to produce security footage to prove that they were victims of theft. Beloved, all of this leads me to believe that we will always have hashtag #MeToo moments. We will always have hashtag #MeToo movements, And we will continue to see women being the victims of sexual assault and harassment until people will continue to not believe women when they come forward until we dismantle white male privilege. If these hearings have taught us nothing else, they confirm how the social capital of gender, race, and class create a system of entitlement and privilege for rich white men like Kavanaugh, who interestingly enough is nominated to sit on the highest court in the land while behaving as if he is above the law and exempt from its consequences. Does anybody else besides me kind of say, that's just like,
Doesn't make sense.
doesn't make sense? The fact that he would lose his cool on public national TV and show how enraged he was so clearly illustrates his privilege. If a woman had behaved that way, she would have been labeled hysterical and called a name that rhymes with witch. If a black man had behaved the way Kavanaugh behaved, he would have been labeled dangerous and unfit for duty. A brother would have risked being shot on national TV if he had behaved the way that Kavanaugh did. What Donald Trump did, and what he does so well, is portray Kavanaugh as the real victim in America, the rich white conservative male. Trevor Noah made an astute observation on his show when he noted that Trump excels at creating a sense of victimhood for people who are in power. Let me say that again. He excels at creating a sense of victimhood, that's how he won the election, for people who are in fact in power. Why is it so much easier to believe the men who have been recently coming forward about the allegations of abuse by Catholic priests? Why doesn't anyone ask them why it took them so long to come forward? Why don't people say things like, priests will be priests? It happened such a long time ago, you need to forget about it. Why is the standard for corroborating evidence different for male versus female victims? The backlash against women occurs because Donald Trump and the right wing send messages to appeal to white men who are angry because they feel displaced by women and minorities who are, in their mind, cutting ahead in the line because of affirmative action and other non-existent entitlements. They can't see or refuse to acknowledge the centuries of unfair advantage that they have had at the expense of the marginalized, who Jesus would call the least of these. But what is almost as tragic as white male privilege is the white women who join in partnership with the very people who oppress them as well.
Come on now.
Marginalized people, unfortunately, will always participate in their own oppression. A CBS poll said that 70% of Republican women supported Kavanaugh, decrying for its credibility or noting that if something happened, it was a long time ago. As if there's a statute of limitation on justice. Just because it happened a long time ago does not mean your behavior should not be held accountable. Amen. Beloved, dismantling privilege is hard to do because the privileged often don't recognize themselves as privileged. I teach a multicultural task, and we spend the entire semester teaching children about being in privileged groups. Amen? The privileged see their privilege as their inalienable right, as the status quo, the way things are supposed to be, the natural order of things. Yes. In the end, beloved, things haven't changed that much since Tamar was raped by Amnon thousands of years ago. Tamar was sexually assaulted by someone she knew, and so was Dr. Christine Ford. Yes. The violation took place not in a dark alley, but in a member of her family's home. Dr. Ford was assaulted at a party at a home of a friend. Tamar said no, her no was not respected. When Tamar sought help, she was told, shh, be quiet. Dr. Ford didn't tell anyone for years until she brought it up in her own therapy. Achieving justice was taken out of Tamar's and Dr. Ford's hand. In both cases, it became men's business and was no longer about their victimization, but about men's vindication. In the end, David mourns for Tamar's rapist, not for Tamar. At the Kavanaugh hearings, Brett Kavanaugh becomes the victim, and the courage of Dr. Ford gets lost in the shuffle. In spite of the negative outcome of this story, beloved, I believe the story of Tamar may encourage women to give voice to their experiences of being victims of violence against men so that the conspiracies of silence don't continue. Ultimately, that is what the Me Too movement is really about. I am often asked, what do women and men who support the Me Too movement want? And I have to be honest, I don't know. I can't speak for all men and women, but this is what I think. We want to live in a world where people celebrate rather than denigrate women. Me too. We want to live in a world where people give a snot about what happens to women, not because we are someone's spouse or daughter or niece or mother or sister, not because we are some way connected to men, but just because. Me too.
All right.
We want to live in a world where women can walk down the street and not get catcalled. Me too. We want to live in a world where women can wear what they want to wear, when they want to wear it, how they want to wear it, and not have it perceived as an invitation to a sexual encounter, because it's not. Me too. We want to live in a world where women's truths are more valued than men's lies. Me too. Where our accusations are not always immediately suspect. Me too. We want to live in a world where sexual harassment is no longer minimized. Me too. Where sexual harassment is not viewed as locker talk or boys will be boys. Me too. I want to live in a world where my life matters just as much as yours. Me too. I want to live in a world where when I talk about sexual assault and sexual harassment, when I talk about how male privilege needs to change, I'm not accused of male bashing. What I'm saying, my brothers, is get your stuff together. Me too. I want to live in a world where when women preach sermons like this, men don't complain that they are offended. If the shoe don't fit, don't wear it. Me too. I want to live in a world where men are just as outraged about sexual harassment and sexual assault as women are. Me too. I want to live in a world where #MeToo becomes unnecessary, unwarranted, and obsolete, not because we're tired of hearing it, but because it's no longer necessary. Me too. God bless you. You can stand all over the church.
Amen.
Amen. Me too.
Me too.
#Me too. Amen.
Go ahead, Pastor.
I know that
Sherry.
many of us have been discouraged by the events of this past week, but I like what Reverend Paula said earlier. We can either wallow in our sorrow and sadness, we can have a pity party, or we can be fueled by that. Amen. I'm going to choose to be fueled. Amen. To me, the fact that it's coming up almost identically the same way 17 years later means the work still needs to be done. Amen. And some of that is by we need to check our own attitudes and things that we say even in a joke. Amen? And so if that is you, if you have come to church this morning, you want to be fired up for Jesus, if you want to know this Savior as your Lord and personal friend who will do anything for you to make sure that you don't have to say me too ever again, then we invite you to let Christ into your heart. Amen? You are the one we've been